All right, today we're diving into something really interesting. And, yeah, pretty controversial. It's a map of human consciousness, a model that some people have called a literal user's manual for the human brain.
So just think about this for a second. What if your mind wasn't just one single thing? What if it was more like a series of 8 different operating systems or circuits, each one handling a totally different layer of reality? Some are for, basic survival stuff. But others, others are supposedly for exploring the very fabric of the universe. It's a wild idea, and it's right at the heart of this 8-circuit model.
I mean, listen to that. The most complete map of reality he'd ever encountered. That's a huge statement, right? It comes from the writer and thinker Robert Anton Wilson, who's one of the main guys we're going to talk about today. For him, this model was a total breakthrough. So what exactly was he seeing here?
Okay, to really get it, we need to stop thinking about this like it's a dry scientific paper. It's way more like a conceptual roadmap, a kind of guide to all the different ways we can perceive and interact with the world around us. And this is super important. This is not a scientifically validated theory. You're not going to find this in a standard neurology textbook. It's really an artistic and conceptual framework. Think of it like having a bunch of different lenses you can look through, and each one gives you a totally different perspective on reality and your place in it.
Yeah, that user manual metaphor is just perfect. The guys who created this, they wanted to get people a tool to understand their own internal wiring, a way to see how we're programmed by our biology and our culture, and maybe, just maybe, figure out how we could learn to reprogram ourselves. So how does this so-called manual break everything down? Well, it all starts with the circuits themselves.
The model itself is actually split into 2 very distinct halves. They represent 2 completely different ways of being. First, there's the game we all play here on Earth, and then there's what the creators saw as, our future evolution. So here's the fundamental split. The first 4 circuits, that's what they call the terrestrial game. It's everything that governs our day-to-day life. Survival, power dynamics, language, social roles, you get the idea. But the next 4 circuits are called post-terrestrial. These are supposed to be for our future evolution, representing these higher states of consciousness that go way beyond our normal, everyday reality. So let's quickly walk through this terrestrial game. It all starts with Circuit 1, our most basic instinct. Stay safe, find food. Simple. Then comes Circuit 2, which is all about the emotional game of power and ego. Who's the alpha? Circuit 3 is where our brain really kicks into gear, building our mental map of the world with language and logic. And finally, Circuit 4 is all about society and culture, raising a family, fitting into your tribe. The model basically says that for most of us, for most of human history, this is where the game stops.
But this is where the map just goes into totally new territory. Circuit 5 is that first taste of something more, a state of blissful awareness, that feeling of being high. Circuit 6 is meta-programming, and that's a cool one. It's like becoming the coder of your own mind, being able to see all your programming and then actually learn how to rewrite it. Circuit 7 is the neurogenetic circuit, this feeling of tapping into the collective memory of all life, of evolution itself. And then finally, there's Circuit 8. They call it psychoatomic consciousness, an awareness that supposedly operates outside the normal limits of space and time.
So who on Earth came up with this wild map of the mind? Well, it was mostly the work of 2 very different but equally massive figures from the counterculture. On one side, you've got Timothy Leary. He was this brilliant psychologist at Harvard who became, one of the most controversial people of the 1960s. He's the one who created the basic framework. And on the other side, you've got Robert Anton Wilson, an author and philosopher who took Leary's ideas, ran with them, and really brought them to a much bigger audience. What's really cool is where their ideas came from. It was this unique mix of the brand new and the super ancient. Leary was completely fascinated by the dawn of the personal computer, so he used these modern metaphors like circuitry and programming, but at the same time, he was looking way back into the past, drawing direct inspiration from ancient systems like the Hindu chakras, which, also map out these energy centers or circuits rising through the body.
And this really gets us to the whole point of the model. It wasn't just some abstract theory. It was designed to be a hands-on tool for radical personal change.
This idea, paraphrased from Leary, is absolutely the key. He believed we are not prisoners of our biology or our culture. We can actively change our own nervous system. The metaphor he loved was so simple, but it's powerful. You can literally change the channel from whatever terrible program you're stuck watching to something way, way better.
So what exactly are we reprogramming? This is where Robert Anton Wilson's famous idea of the reality tunnel comes in. He argued that there's no single objective reality out there. Instead, each of us experiences the world through this filter of our own beliefs, our genetics, our past experiences. That's our personal reality tunnel. The whole goal of using this model is to become aware of your own tunnel and then learn how to change it.
Okay, so we definitely have to talk about the model's most controversial part. Leary and Wilson explicitly tied activating these circuits to specific substances. This chart here shows some of the connections they proposed, mapping things like opioids to the basic survival circuit and psychedelics like DMT to the higher neurogenetic circuit. Now, of course, this is just to explain their original framework, not to endorse it. It's just a core piece of their model.
So, where does that leave us with this thing? What's the legacy of this model? Is it some brilliant insight into the human mind, or is it just the drug-fueled ramblings of a couple of discredited thinkers? Well, as always, the truth is kind of complicated.
So let's be super clear about this. The 8-circuit model is not accepted science. You can't just dissect a human brain and find these little circuits. As one person online put it perfectly, it's best understood not as science, but as a spiritual and philosophical tool for thinking about things differently.
And that's why its legacy is so divided. For critics, it's just pseudoscience, a weird relic of a drug-fueled era. But for a lot of people who are into it, it's still an incredibly useful metaphor. It's that user manual for the nervous system we keep talking about, a practical way to think about reality and personal growth.
But here's the most fascinating twist of all. That central idea from the 1970s counterculture, the idea that we can fundamentally reprogram our own brains, that's not fringe anymore. It's actually a huge concept in mainstream science right now.
It's called neuroplasticity. It's the now proven fact that our brains can form new connections and pathways our entire lives based on our experiences, what we learn, even how we heal. So while Leary's circuits were a metaphor, the basic principle that our brains are adaptable and changeable is now solid scientific fact.
And that leaves us with this final thought to chew on. Maybe the 8-circuit model's greatest value wasn't about being scientifically right, but about asking the right question. Are we just stuck with the reality we've got, or is consciousness more like a dial we can actually learn to tune?